Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns, and this evening we're starting the discussions with the candidates for mayor. And the first candidate we have with us tonight is Phil Venezia. Welcome, Phil.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, what made you think you want to run?
Well, I noticed that there were no opposition at all in the mayor's race. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's something we want to have as a city. I have opposing views, and I just wanted to get them out there and give people an option.
Well, you say opposing views. What do you think should be doing different?
I'm not a fan of the development right now.
By development, you mean?
Do you mean the affordable housing and the Rantoul Street projects that are going on? I have an issue with the way we go about it. I'm not objecting to affordable housing, but I think we've put a little too much in one area. The density's a little too high. I don't know if the infrastructure is going to be able to control this. Traffic is not handling it very well, and we still have, I think, 3 or 4 more projects scheduled for that road, and I think we have to slow that down.
So I guess it really comes down to is, what do you think is the character of the city of Beverly?
Well, that's kind of one of my points. It's like, do we really want to become an urban center, which is what it looks like we're turning into?
Yeah. Or
what we were. I mean, we can't stay stagnant. There has to be growth. I understand that. But I don't agree with the urban center, that area we seem to be going. I don't know what the direction of Beverly is right now. I'm struggling to understand what our goal is here. We want to give everybody housing, which is great, but then we raise taxes accordingly, so it makes it less affordable in the end. I'm just having a problem with the mindset at City Hall as to what their goal is.
Yeah. So you're really raising a question more about transparency.
More than anything.
More than anything else. Of how do we know where the city's going in accordance to the leadership if they don't tell us? Right. And so I guess part of the concern, is how will a mayor work with a city council? And they're supposed to be our representative. So when you're elected mayor, what's your attitude towards the city council? How do you see them functioning or contributing to the city?
Well, I think they're critical. I think that they should. I mean, the decisions to be made in conjunction. There has to be a consensus. I'm not a giant fan of the mayor being the end-all with everything, and the council just stamping with last minute, here we go, we're going to do this, a la the Dollar General thing that I won't get into at this point. But I think the city council needs a much stronger hand. I think they need much more control of the city. I think that allows you that many more minds to come up with something. And I think you'll see more transparency that way. It'll be done at a meeting.
Yeah, well, that raises an interesting predicament that we're looking for a city council that is going to be a significant contributor. And I guess this is a deviation from the current policies. And it gets to, how do you get something like that rolling? You just can't walk in and say, okay, you guys take over and do this. But at the same time, you're still in charge of the city.
I mean, I'm not talking about leaving them in charge, but I think you have to include them in it. You have to take advice at some point. You have to think that perhaps my way is not the best way. Yeah. That maybe 9 other minds might possibly, with their constituents, have a different vision of the city. That's where my whole mindset is that it can't be one man's vision.
Well, that I think gets to the heart of it, is that they are representatives of the various constituencies around town, and you're going to have to be looking to them for, what do you hear from the folks in your neighborhood or in your ward or at large, kind of thing. So it puts an onus on them to stay in tune as opposed to just showing up on Monday night and seeing what the mayor has to say.
That's kind of the point of it is, they need to be, you need to get out there.
Yeah.
That's what you're representing, your ward.
Yep. And at the same time, you look at the city of Beverly, and you go back far enough, it's a mill town. It's what it started as. One of the things in one of the brochures is one of the first textile mills in the country was in Beverly.
That's right.
And get into a very long discussion for another show about how the city has not taken advantage of its heritage, its characteristics, like Salem, like Gloucester, like some of the other towns and cities around us that have. But that's one of the other issues of part of the question of where does Beverly go? Do we try to attract a tourist industry? Do we try to stay like we are, very industrial, between the Cummings Center and Dunham Road and the airport? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that we are more of an industrial city, and that's what we should embrace. In my personal belief,
Yeah.
that's who we are. That's the Beverly I grew up with, the Beverly I know. I've been here for most of my life. I went through the entire school system of Beverly, my grandchildren, my children, and that's what we're not a tourist attraction. We may want to be. I don't see it. We're never going to compete.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really want to be a bedroom community. That's not who we are. We need to be that mix. For years we had the United Shoe, and it was our identity.
Yeah.
And the shoe went away, and now we seem to have just been wandering ever since that time with no one really seems to know what we want to be.
Well, the master plan that the city put together a year or two ago came up with a statistic that surprised me that 90% of the people who work in Beverly work in the health industry, between the hospital, and there's a couple other facilities around, and the Cummings Center is loaded with doctor's office and physical therapy offices and all that kind of stuff. That seems to be a direction the city is going in. Not sure you would agree that that's the way we want to go. At the same time, there's stories that some cell signaling is going to expand, but only in Manchester. Why not here? And a few other different companies are coming into the city, but where are you going to put them? I guess is part of the question. What's your take on how much of this city is going to be devoted to industrial zoning?
Well, I mean, there's a limitation. Of course, there's space. You only have X amount of space. They've been fooling with Dunham Road for, I don't know how long now.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's ever going anywhere. And I don't really want to turn it into an industrial city. I mean, I believe a city will more or less find its own path. You just have to help it. If it's healthcare, if it's light industrial, whatever that might be, you just have to facilitate that.
Yeah.
You have to help with that. You can't force it to be something it's not. I don't believe, at least. It's whatever direction it's going, in providing it's not a bad direction, you have to just let it go.
Yeah.
There's no reason to compete with the other cities and towns. Just Beverly needs to be Beverly. And Beverly needs to do what Beverly wants and needs to do. And
Well, that's a question I keep asking is what's the character of Beverly and where's it going? And I think the best answer I got was from one of the ex-city councilors that the character of Beverly has changed, and it's a continuing process. And I guess that's part of what I would think the mayor would be involved in is how do you manage change? How do you keep the process going? How do you keep fresh ideas coming in and allowing them to grow and not stifle them? And, like the previous governor, Baker, was pushing this TOD, transient-oriented development. So that's because Beverly's got a bunch of railroad stations. Around every station, there ought to be multiple family housing. And right now, we're pretty, as far as I last heard, we're pretty close to meeting the minimum requirement. So maybe there's a little pressure on the city from the state to do more, but would that be something to be worth exploring? Or what's your take on the TOD? Because
Well, my position, I mean, what I've read just recently, by the way, is that we've exceeded the state requirement.
Yeah.
We're at something like 11.8%, and I think the minimum was 10. So we're not restricted by that anymore.
yeah,
I think that the previous government, I think it was a short-sighted policy to begin with. I mean, I think they sold the city a bill of goods, and I don't know what the city gets from this. You know, I don't know what grants and so forth. Or, you know, we can't be chasing grants all the time. I think that we ended up, you know, I've heard through the grapevines, oh, people are going to be taking the train. It's not going to affect anything. That's why we're building around the train station. Well, I live in that area. It's not true.
where do you live, by the way?
I live in Rouse Side.
Oh, Rouse Side.
I live
okay.
on the wrong side of the bridge.
Yeah, okay.
And but I walk through there all the time.
Yeah.
You know, almost every day I walk through there, and it's not what it was intended to be. I don't think it worked out. It might have been a grand plan, but I don't think it happened. And I think it's time to call it quits over there.
Yeah.
If you want to do, if you want to do affordable housing, do affordable housing, not do these 10%, 11% affordable, 89% is market. I don't think that's the answer to anything. I don't think it worked. I think the state dumped it on the city.
Where would you suggest putting affordable housing then?
I would suggest putting it all around the city, smaller increments, smaller places. No one wants 70 units next to them. I can't think of a neighborhood in America that would want a 70 or 80 or 90 unit divisions that are going on right there and next to them.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll object to 10, 12, 15. They're all affordable housing. You've actually had more affordable housing than that 90 unit.
And the old classic was, as a young couple, you buy a 3-decker, and that's how you develop wealth. And at the same time, that can be housing that is affordable to lots of different people.
Right. We have to
And,
make it affordable.
You don't see that happening around town. I haven't seen a 3-decker built in years.
It's tearing them down.
No, but there's still a few left. And the zoning doesn't exactly prohibit it, but how do you get somebody interested in something like that?
I think in the same way you got them interested in building a 70 unit. You give them an incentive to do it.
Yeah,
Whatever it takes them to do it. Maybe you give them a tax break for a few years. Maybe we take some of city-owned property and we sell it under market. Whatever you need to do. I mean, it's costing us now to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think we can take that money and perhaps do something different with it. I'm not saying we stop all the development down there, but I think we got to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just everybody that I've spoken to, with almost without exception, is beside themselves on what's going on that area. It's just everyone's had enough of it. I also have.
when you say had enough of what?
It's too busy. It's too many cars. It's too many people. It's too dense. You can't find a parking space down there. I go walking through there at 4 or 5 o'clock. The traffic is backed up, I don't know, to Gloucester Crossing probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see that far, and I'm looking over the bridge, and it's just not, it's not fun. It's not, you don't, I can't see enjoying doing that every day.
Yeah.
It's just not what I envision Beverly. We've got to take the residents back into account in this whole thing, which is we seem to have forgotten the existing residents in the rush to get affordable housing and be correct and do the governor's dirty work for him, which is, the state's short housing, and they're throwing it
yeah.
at the cities,
Yeah.
is what they've done.
Well, the one I notice on the traffic is either on Route 62 or going out Brimble Avenue or Essex Street. All you have to do is have a train stop for 4 minutes, and traffic is backed up to downtown.
Yes.
And this is one of the problems, I guess, that the city has somehow or other got to struggle with is, yeah, okay, we want more people, fine. They're going to have to move around town. How are we going to manage to get some sort of semblance of motion in the city and not just have gridlock on every street, and all it takes is one train stop and whoops, everything comes to a screeching halt. So the other issue comes up about how do we encourage public transportation? Or is that an avenue you'd like to explore?
Well, I mean, when I was young, we had buses running through all the time. I'm sure you remember it. You could go down Capitol or Rantoul Street. That's how I used to go to school. So I used to go to Briscoe.
Yeah.
So I would take the city bus. I didn't have a school bus, and we had our bus card and whatever it cost, 10 or 15 cents. And we went, but those buses aren't around anymore. There's one every so many hours comes by, and it'll bring you to the Cummings Center. But it doesn't, people just don't seem to want that, it appears to me. I would try to push that, but that's an MBTA thing that I don't know that that's something the city could handle.
Well, that gets to be the interesting problem. You want to do something about traffic. One of the solutions is public transportation. That's one of the buzzwords these days. You don't have it. Used to have it. I can remember the trolley tracks running down Cabot Street.
That's it. Yeah.
And they're not there anymore. They took them out. Well, maybe a trolley is not the right thing to do, but you look at some of these other cities, and they have emphasized mass transit of some sort. And it makes sense if you're going someplace and you can get there within a reasonable period of time. And my favorite is always, I happened to fly into Love Field one time. It's between Dallas and Fort Worth. And they've got a horizontal elevator that runs around the field.
Oh.
And you just stop at the station and you wait, and this series of cars stop. There's no driver. You just get on and you just take it to the next stop. It stops at every one of the terminals all the way around. You can make that work in a situation like that, but that's the kind of thing I would think that would take to get people back into mass transit and park the car and take the train.
I agree. I think you're right about it. I think now it's clicking a little bit in my head a little bit that if you had waste stations for them, maybe if you had outlying parking lot, that the train or trolley is never going to be where you need it. You're going to have to go to it to some extent, and if we can spread that around a little bit, so that perhaps everybody isn't going to the train station at 7:30 in the morning. Maybe if there are 4 or 5 places that you could grab a trolley or a small bus, and it will take you on its run. Yeah. And I can see where that's worth a try.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth a shot, because now what happens doesn't work.
Yeah. So you get to be mayor. What's the first thing you want to do?
Well, we're talking about transportation and housing, but the very first thing I want to do is tax relief. I want to propose a senior tax relief program where we freeze the tax bill for people over age 65.
I'll vote for that.
I think if you pay taxes your whole life, many people I know I've talked to are struggling. Inflation's a problem for them.
Yeah.
The taxes, I don't know about your taxes, my taxes have gone up roughly 85% in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow on someone on Social Security.
Yeah.
Or anything, let alone not even Social Security.
Yeah.
I just think that we could. I don't think it's that expensive. It would only be for a long-time resident. You'd have to live here 5, 10, 15 years. We'd have to make some parameters for it.
Yeah.
But you've paid your dues, and now we want to. This is done, by the way, in the state of Texas does a similar thing, and they do it with their. They tax a little differently. They tax per district, and And that's what they do with their school district taxes, is once you age 65, you don't pay, your taxes don't go up from that day forward on that particular property, unless you do something, improve it or somehow change its value. And that would be one of the very first things I would want to do.
What's number 2 on your list?
Number 2 would be the parking downtown. I know it's not a big thing, but it's an irritant that people don't like. And everyone I talk to, they don't like the kiosks. They don't work half the time. I want people to be able to, they paid your taxes, I want them to be able to come down and park their car. And what we're doing now is, because we have a parking issue, that they did a report, this Wagner company said we don't have a parking issue. I read it, it's 29 pages. But we do have a parking issue sometimes. And the way we're fixing it now is we're pricing people out of it. We're going to just keep raising the rate so that you won't go park there.
Yeah.
That's not, to me, a plan. That's a punishment. We need parking garages. We're going to have to build parking garages. We already have a place. We just dropped $6-8 million on this white elephant at the Dollar General.
Yeah.
And there's a 100-space parking lot behind that, by the way, comes out to about $65,000 per space we paid. I think we should build some type of a multi-story parking garage back there.
Yeah.
That would alleviate, and at least the first level of it would be free parking. Limited free parking, 2-hour parking type thing. But no one likes to feed a meter all day long. And you're just driving people away from the businesses is what they're doing. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Or you get somebody comes in and parks on the streets for the magic 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can't find a place to park because everybody's playing the same game. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, parking is a serious problem in the city, and so you're suggesting is just take the kiosks out and go back to free parking on the street?
That would be not just Cabin and Rental Street. Not, you would still pay in the parking lots. The sides, all the restrictions, everything would remain. It's just that I'm finding that a lot of people, they don't want to go downtown because they don't want to deal with it. And there is no parking. Whether there's you pay for it or not, it's just not available to you. You go to, if I go to the Cabot on a Friday night, there's no parking. I'm parking down the other end of town, is what it amounts to. We should be able to, as a city, be able to put something in for that, I think.
Well, the state built or the MBTA built a parking garage for the train station. Cost them about $5 million. Got 500 spaces or something like that in it. So you're suggesting that the city get into the same kind of venture?
Yes.
Just spring for $5 million and build a parking space?
Just spring for it, but I would, and it would, some of it would get paid for. You would be paid parking on certain levels of it.
Yeah.
Part of the problem I see in that area, at least, is not enough parking for the residents either.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, is they're eating up all the spaces also. And they need a place to park. That's all there is to it.
You got to go to work, and you got 2 wage earners in the family. They both have to have a car because they don't work at the same place,
right? Guaranteed.
So every residence needs at least 2 parking spaces. And when the kids grow up, next thing you know, it's 3, 4. Yeah. Anyway. Hey, surprise, surprise, we made it 2 hour, 30 minutes almost, and the last 5 minutes are yours. So what would you like to tell the audience about your campaign?
Well, I would like to let people know that I decided to start this campaign when I realized that no one was running for mayor, and I wanted people to have a choice, and I wanted to do it a little bit differently than most other people do. And I want to attract the informed voters, and I want to give them the issues and my take on those issues and how I feel the city should run. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to run around and give you free popcorn and roses, and I'm going to be a guy who's going to tell you about the issues. I'm going to tell you what I think I need to do. Whether right or wrong, this is what I'm going to go with. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will obviously listen to other people, but as it stands, in today's world, there's plenty of opportunity to see what each candidate wants to do, what the city is doing, how the city is running, everything. is online today. And everybody is online, and you should be able to make your choices accordingly. And I don't know that I have 5 minutes worth, but that's pretty much what I want to say about
Yeah.
that whole.
Okay. And since there's three of you running for mayor this time around, there's going to be a primary. We're in it right now, as a matter of fact. And as last I heard, the primary election is the 29th of September. So we get the first chance to vote for you then.
Yes.
And I assume you'd like everybody to vote for you.
I would hope that, I would get a vast majority of the people to vote for me
Good.
on the 29th. But, everyone has their own, your voice is your vote.
Yep.
And so you need to vote, is
Okay.
what it amounts to.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I wish you all the luck on the primary and on the election.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And as usual, at the end of the credits, my email address. If you got some comments or some questions that I should have asked, feel free, give me an email, and we'll take care of it. And if you want to have a voice at the table, we can always make room for you here.